Policy Institute's modeled after the Goldwater Institute up in Phoenix.
Absolutely.
Tanner Bell is the executive director, and you mentioned Evan. He's the attorney for the organization. So
that's right.
And they have launched a lawsuit against the City of Tucson on the historic train depot and some questionable uses of tax dollars to benefit certain folks, which is against the Arizona Constitution. So
right.
that's the setup. So we get back from the break. It's 6:46. We're going to continue the dialogue with Shelby. She is the plaintiff that stood up and said this is no longer okay, and kind of find out what's happened to her since that's happened, because it's not been pretty.
We're going to use that word petty repercussions from our good friends at the City of Tucson. So 790-2040 is the number. wakeuptucson@gmail.com. It's coming up. This is going to be a good one to wake you up, Tucson.
Wake up, Tucson. Call Chris and Joe now at 790-2040.
All right, 6:51 in the morning. It's Chris and Joe. Shelby Hawkins, 5-Star Pest Control.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. So we set up the whole story. The free rent deals going on, full-service lease at the train depot, paying for people's electricity. The city government, the taxpayers paying for people's electricity, their gas, their water,
their insurance,
their security and alarms at $100,000 plus a year. And so Shelby decided to stand up and be the plaintiff for the Arizona Policy Institute lawsuit against the City of Tucson. Right. Joe Higgins.
And then, you've been communicating with me how this is going, and all of a sudden you become somewhat of a person that gets real interest in the city. So you've had what now? You've had investigation from what now?
Well, first of all, is you and I have talked about this. It's just that the guy came over and checked our. It's called a backflow gauge, and by the way, we don't use it because all the water that my men use are from our reverse osmosis tank, like we advertise. Right. Okay, so and that's to prevent any chemical being sucked back into the city water.
And it's fairly common. They send you a thing in the mail, and you got to have a plumber. They do the backflow test. So that's
and we did that 2 weeks prior to this guy just dropping in and telling us that we're in violation, and I'm like, no, we just had that done 2 weeks ago. The guy hadn't sent the report in. I talked to you. You sent your guy over, and your guy said, well, the guy from the city didn't do it correctly, and everything was fine. So we got that taken care of. And then the next one was I'm going to use this. I'm going to use this phrase. Is basically 2 thugs came over to my office when I wasn't there, and it's amazing. This always happens when I'm not there, and I'm going. What do these guys do? Watch me? Okay, she's gone. Let's go. And they said, you can't have more than 50 square feet for your political signs. We have a complaint. And your fence. We need information on the fence. You weren't supposed to build this. And my daughter says, well, it's 6 feet and under.
So they challenge your political signs you had hanging.
Right.
And then they said, where's the permit on the fence?
Yeah, and we said we didn't. We didn't. Our contractor said we didn't need a permit as long as it's 6 feet or under. And not over 6 feet tall. And then they also were upset because we had the Boy Scouts storing their equipment on the north property there, and so you can mess with my political signs, you can mess with my new fence, but don't mess with my Boy Scouts. So I was pretty up. Yeah.
So what are you storing for the Boy Scouts?
They have some trailers there, and then they have this big steel compartment that they use to store things. And one of the thing is, they said you can't have permanent structures there, and I'm like, it's not permanent. I mean, if it was permanent, they wouldn't have been able to move it there in the first place. Okay, and I already knew that we couldn't have a permanent structure there, which is fine.
It's one of those roll things, lock up minis,
right?
Minis,
Exactly. So. And
then the straw that broke the camel's back, and that's when I said we need to come and talk about this. Was you got a call from who?
Oh,
this is like the fourth one now.
No, it didn't get a call. It was again, and now after that, the 2 thugs had come over, is we put a sign on the door that any reference to this property needs to be referred directly to the property owner, and that's Shelby Hawkins. And call her at 886-0045 for an appointment. Mm-hmm. I was like, no, my staff does not own it. Mm-hmm. I mean, I own it. Talk to me directly. So who comes over but someone from the fire department, and they want to do an inspection. So they're telling my daughter, again, I'm gone. And they said, well, we want to do an inspection. And Heidi says, why? Did we have a complaint? And he goes, no, we do this every 3 to 5 years. And I'm going, let's see. I closed escrow on this on September 14th, 1994. Let me see. I think I've had one. Yeah. since 1994, but they do it every 3 to 5 years. So I'm going to be calling him today, and
now these are all things that are within the purview of the city. They can do all these things,
right?
But all of a sudden,
I get all this stuff.
They start showing up on a regular basis from one after another. So, I'm sure that there's some city people listening. So I just want them. One of the things I want them to encourage them to do is look at my background, especially between 1991 and 95, and find out what happened between me and the Structural Pest Control Commission. And you'll get a little bit more background of how I handle problems like this. Is the executive director at that time lost his job. So just, tune up. And why this is important, Chris, and we talked about this earlier.
Sure.
Folks will run up to talk to us, restaurateurs or people trying to open things, do things, and tell us these atrocious stories. And then we'll say, well, let's come on and talk about it. Let's go.
Right.
I mean, you got to shine the light of day on some of how this stuff goes. Oh, no, don't. I don't want my name any part of it because they're going to have these kind of repercussion issues. And in this situation, we're kind of seeing it. And that's why when you call me on some of these things, I've said, Shelby, you got to come on and we got to talk about this because it's not okay.
It's not okay.
To use the power of the government and the power of regulatory things. Now, these are all things that can be done. These are all code-based stuff.
Right. But
why all of a sudden now? Why all of a sudden you? And why at forum?
So you've had all four in what time span?
Let's see, maybe 5 weeks.
5 weeks.
Or less.
And you've been in business for how long?
February 8th, 1980.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I got a small business owner who's trying to stand up for a deal that looks like it obviously violates the Arizona Constitution here, and
the courts will determine that.
And of course,
and
of course, you're aiding and abetting a subversive group called the Boy Scouts.
Right, I just love them. Love them. They're great.
Okay.
Don't touch my Boy Scouts.
You know what I mean? So this is what we're talking about, folks, is that this is when we hear these folks, the city council and Mike Letcher and all these folks want to say business friendly, we're small business friendly, blah blah blah. This is what they do. They create this environment, okay, where basically it stinks for the small business owner who does not have the connections. Okay, Shelby, how many fundraisers have you thrown for Karen Ulick, Regina Romero, Shirley Scott, and Bob Walkup?
None.
Oh. Okay, just want to make sure. I just want to get that on the record. So you don't throw the right fundraisers. You step up on something that's obviously wrong and part of a huge wrong, which is called Rio Nuevo, and there's still $40 to $50 million of assets stolen by the city onto their balance sheet from Rio Nuevo.
Allegedly.
I don't know. Allegedly.
Yeah,
Thank
please.
you, Jim. Allegedly. That's what we like to say. Okay. When it comes off of Willenbrock in the middle of open meetings, though, I'm gonna go to the bank with it. Hate to tell you. Okay. But so you step up, and so they're going to play the petty, the bullcrap games with you, is what it sounds like.
They can, I know that we're near the target because I'm getting the flack. But at the same time, in my business, I welcome complaints. I tell when people call me up and complain about some things, they go, I don't like to do this, but I go, unless I know that there's a problem, I can correct it. So what I'm saying to the city leaders, there's a problem. There's a big problem here, and you need to correct it. So,
other than actually correcting it, it's lip service. And I hear the lip service, and I hear the lip service, and I hear the lip service. Now it's an election year. Everybody wants to have job creation, and small business is the best thing on earth, and let's make a healthy climate for small business. But when the rubber meets the road, and you hear these kind of stories, and we hear a ton of them, Chris, it's disheartening. And it stops people from ever wanting to do business in this town. They're going to say, gosh, I went through such a mess last time. I'm not doing it.
And this is where an absence of a true, healthy chamber of commerce that wields political influence is really
because alone,
I mean, it's great the camper's gone, but we got to make the right next step. But there's no one there to help.
You got to have someone stepping up for these kind of things, man. That's important. That's why we use a voice on this radio show and talk about it. Because if you talk about it, it shines a light on it.
Yep.
And that's what Steve Christie talks about.
Right.
You got to talk about this stuff. You got to get the word out. So
get it out.
If Roger Yoem and the boys from Inside Tucson Business are listening to this, get in contact with Shelby. You got a good story for next week's Inside Tucson Business. So, Shelby Hawkins, keep fighting, girl.
5-star pest control. Thank you.
790-2040. We'll see you after football. We'll take Shelby out. We're going to play some tackle football. Wake up, Tucson.